only thing that has a direct correlation with happiness is the strength of your human connections. Schools are preparing us for a world that is no longer going to exist. You're putting these kids in a bubble, and by the time they come out, the world has changed. By 2029, everyone in the world will have the equivalent of Tony Stark's Jarvis on their phone. And so I started Mindvalley to help get this out to more people. We're looking at everything from neurofeedback to psychedelics to meditation. Getting people to understand that they can exist in different states of consciousness and access these states for different abilities. It's teaching you all the things that can lead to you having a better life that school forgot to teach you.
This week on the show, we have Vishen Lakhiani. He is the founder of Mindvalley, a company that's really tried to reinvent our entire concept of the education system. He believes schools don't work. We're teaching our kids the wrong things, and it's all because of these devices we have in our pockets. They're super smart, they have all this information, so we need to learn how to learn differently. And he just came back from his very first Mindvalley University, where he took over the city of Barcelona and taught kids next to old people, next to adults, and really just changed the whole concept of what learning is. And I'm super excited to drop this episode on you. I love Vishen, and I was actually in Ibiza this year at his A-Fest, which is his semi-annual gathering. Tons of great ideas, tons of fun, tons of former London Real guests like Esther Perel, and I really love his vision and what he's gonna do with the world. So sit back and relax for Vishen, and of course come over to London Real Academy. Check out our Broadcast Yourself course, our Business Accelerator, our Life Accelerator course. We're always doing big things. And now I leave you with Vishen Lakhiani. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Vishen Lakhiani, the entrepreneur, author, speaker, and philanthropist. You are the founder and CEO of Mindvalley, one of the most successful wellness companies in the world, which you started in 2003 with just $700. You've recently launched Mindvalley University, this year taking place in Barcelona, which is your reimagining of our education system for the future. Your best-selling book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, provides a 10-point framework for understanding and enhancing the human self and features interviews with Elon Musk, Richard Branson, and Arianna Huffington. I was at your A-Fest in Ibiza this year. I had an amazing time. Vishen, welcome to London Real.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here because firstly, I've watched your interviews. Not only are they so high-end and so intellectual, but oh my God, your set. I love design. I love interior design. I love the whole steampunk feel. And this set is ridiculous. It's so beautiful. That bulldog, I want that.
Don't take the bulldog with you. You were typing on the vertical typewriters. Yeah, this is all right up your alley, right?
This is so inspiring for me.
Okay.
I just love this place.
And you have a new tech space, you're saying, in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah, we opened up a new tech office about 18 months ago. I forgot the exact date, but I just come back from Burning Man, and I was inspired by steampunk. So IBM's computer, Watson or Big Blue, did an analysis of what would be the hottest new design style in the future, right? Future meaning like 10 years on. And it was steampunk, which is basically this.
Okay.
Steampunk is if you lived 100 years ago, what would you imagine the future to be like, right? So steampunk is very inspired by Jules Verne. It's steam engine, it's gas mask, it's British leather, British flags everywhere.
I love
so
it.
It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful style,
Well,
and I love it. You've got it here.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a vibe we hit on right when we were redesigning our studio, and it just works for this whole space. So it's awesome to have you here. And I've actually seen what you can do behind the scenes by being at AFest. So I want to talk all about that and your last month in Barcelona. But first, tell me about London and your relationship with London, because you've probably been around London all over the globe, but you spent much time here.
Well, I have family here, and I'm a New York guy. So I like London, but I've always found London extremely complicated with hard to use public transport and streets that just don't make sense, because in New York everything is a grid. So I love London. I love the people. My wife is in love with the city. My wife, she's Estonian. She was educated at University of Edinburgh. So Britain is in her heart. She loves this country. And so we come to London every now and then with our kids for a holiday.
Okay. And you were born in Kuala Lumpur.
I was born in Kuala Lumpur.
Went to
yes.
school at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
In Ann Arbor,
Okay.
yes.
Spent a summer in Ann Arbor, by the way. And then you went to New York City.
I worked in New York. I worked in Silicon Valley. Now, Mind Valley's operations are in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Okay. And your wife's Estonian. You have a lot of Estonian staff, so you know Europe.
Right.
But you're all over the place.
I just became a European resident, and I'm in love with this continent.
Very much, right? It's amazing. It's
is,
awesome.
it is.
Tell me about this last month, because I've been hearing about this Mind Valley University, and I figured we might as well do this because you just flew in from Barcelona.
Right.
I was at AFest about a month ago in Ibiza, maybe it was 6 weeks ago, I don't remember, and you were talking about the extension of this 4 or 5 day piece where we're learning from all these great people, former guests on the show like Esther Perel. She was amazing. Again, you curate these people that teach us things, and then you were going on to do this university, and I figured we might as well start there because it's the first time you did it, and it's really kind of a revolutionary idea. So what happened in Barcelona?
Well,
I love that city, by the way.
well, before I answer that, I should tell you the end goal, the end game of what we are trying to do, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at the world today, the way our society functions is fundamentally broken. Gallup did a really interesting study a couple of years back, and they found that 54% of Americans hate their jobs. Or the more accurate word in the study was dislike their jobs. And then Gallup did a study of school kids, and the majority of American school kids, over 50%, I believe it was 51 and 52%, dislike school. Now think about what that is saying. It's saying that we've created a society, despite all our technology, despite 2,000 years of Western civilization, more even, where our kids dislike how they are spending the majority of their waking hours, and they are groomed to become adults who dislike the way they are spending the majority of their waking hours. Something is broken, and we're talking about over 50% here. Now, I mean, if you had a car, and 50% of the time you hated being in this car, you disliked this car, it was breaking down, it stank, it wouldn't move, you'd probably want to go get a new car. But when it comes to our education, when it comes to our careers, we blindly follow. We have this idea that this is the way it has to be, and we just have to accept it. So I've been in those situations. I went to a really horrible school in Kuala Lumpur. I've worked at really horrible jobs, and I decided, well, what would happen if we reinvented this? So I got into this intense study of all of these new models of human evolution. I looked at Ken Wilber's work, the world's greatest living philosopher, and he spoke about expanding consciousness and what would human beings think about, how would they function, what would their levels of awareness be as we progressed. I looked into Barbara Marx Hubbard's idea of Homo universalis. I looked into Neil Donald Walsh's work of highly evolved beings, and I tried to create a roadmap of what the optimized human being would be. And I'm talking about optimized in terms of not just spiritual awareness, but optimized in terms of your levels of self-esteem, confidence, the way you follow your passion, the way you treat other human beings, the way you raise your kids. And then I looked at what the education system is doing to get us there. And the answer is hardly anything. maybe 5 to 10%. Instead, the education system is creating us to be cogs in the wheels of machinery. I mean, and that quote comes directly from Calvin Coolidge, I think, in the 1920s. He says, the point of education is to create workers who can be cogs in the wheels of industry. And so much has advanced in our world in terms of technology. Artificial intelligence, robotics. We know that 10 years from now, 45% of the jobs in the world today are going to be obsolete. But we're doing nothing to expand the human being's understanding of itself and its own nature. Human consciousness isn't evolving as fast. What I'm trying to do at Mindvalley is to do everything I can, I guess, to collaborate with the world's greatest thinkers, to bring on millions of students onto our platforms, to accelerate and build upon human ideas of consciousness. So you mentioned AFES, right?
Yeah. Now, before we do that, you started Mindvalley in 2003 with meditation, right? That's
right.
how kind of
right.
That's how it started. But it sounds like as you spent more time with that, you opened your mind and said, okay,
yes.
I got more work to do.
Yes, because I was in Silicon Valley. I'm a computer engineer, so I was going to say a bit of a geek, but no, I'm a total geek. I was a computer engineer.
Used to be a geek. I used to be one too.
I still am, and I say that with pride.
Okay, good.
I have this, so I have all of the weird negative sides of being a computer engineer, right? I'm a little bit socially awkward. I'm probably slightly Asperger's or something, but my mind thinks in algorithms, and I see patterns sometimes. I see patterns in everything. And I guess that's one of the abilities that allowed me to see patterns in life. So in my book, I call these, I use the word culturescape to describe the collective web of human beliefs, ideas, understandings, rituals, religions, culture, as it surrounds us. But within this web of the culturescape, there are rules that help us move forward, and there are rules which I call brules or bullshit rules that hold us back. So when I was in Silicon Valley, I lost my company. My timing sucked. I was a kid who thought I was smart. I thought I was going to build this technology. Investors were going to hand me money. I was dumb, I was inexperienced, I lost everything, and I found myself sleeping on a couch. This was 2001, 2002, when the dot-com bubble had just burst. I was sending out my resume to every job I could find on Craigslist, and finally, a company hires me, and they want me to sell technology to law firms. It was the only job that I could get after months of being unemployed. So the economy was so bad, the deal was if you couldn't close a sale, you did not get paid. No base salary. So I was miserable. I was taking home maybe $2,000 a month, which is hardly enough to live in San Francisco. So I guess in desperation, I got online and I Googled. I can't remember what I searched for. Maybe it was, why does life suck so bad? Or please help me figure this out. And I found a class on meditation. Flew, took the class, and something shifted in me. I came back and I was using these newfound human abilities to be better at my job. Not only did I double my sales in 1 week using ideas I learned such as empathy, creative visualization, tapping into intuition, using mindfulness to remove stress. Not only that, but I was able to be so good at connecting with people as a leader to set proper goals for myself and my team that in the next 4 months, at the age of 26, I got promoted 3 times. And then the boss ended up giving me 2 jobs in the company. I could handle 2 jobs that normally would require 2 senior managers because my mind was so much more effective. But after staying with that company for 18 months, I realized I wanted to do more. I wanted to give back to the world. And this is a really funny thing that happens, Brian, when you meditate. There's this weird phenomenon that happens when you meditate a lot where you start feeling connected. And when you start feeling connected with life, with other human beings, you cannot help but get that feeling inside you that you want to give back. So I don't know what it is, but meditation seems to open up this altruistic drive within people. And I wanted to give back. And I remember Nelson Mandela had once said, if you want to change the world, change education. So I thought, well, what can I do to create a company in education that could teach the world what I had just learned, that it had such a profound impact in my life? I mean, I grew up with self-esteem problems. Even in my entire college life, I never dated a single girl because I believed I was ugly and I was insecure and I just didn't know how, I just had no confidence. And I wondered, what if I had learned this stuff way, way, way earlier? Who would I have been? And so I started Mindvalley to help get this out to more people. And now, I guess that's what we try to do every single day, and I absolutely love it. It's no longer just meditation, it's fitness, it's relationships, it's teaching you all the things that can lead to you having a better life that school forgot to teach you.
You went to University of Michigan.
Right.
I went to MIT. You got computer science degree then?
Yes, back when I studied in the University of Michigan, our electrical engineering and computer science department was ranked number 5 in the world, I believe.
Right.
MIT, I think, was number 1. So, damn it, you beat me on that one. Were you an engineer?
I was a mechanical engineer.
Mechanical engineer.
Yeah, that's why I was at Ford Motor Company
Right.
for the summer, and I lived in Ann Arbor and worked at
I
Dearborn.
see. That explains why you're an Ann
Yeah.
Arbor.
So, do we shut down these universities? Before I want to get into your university, is there a place for that? Did you learn anything there?
Well, university has its good points and its bad points, and that's why I created my own university, right? Which we just completed, and I just flew in from Barcelona. But here's what's happening. I was talking to Ray Kurzweil, the VP of Engineering at Google. We were having dinner at an XPRIZE event, and he said something really interesting to our dinner table. He says, by 2029, everyone in the world will have the equivalent of Iron Man's or Tony Stark's Jarvis on their phone. You'd be able to open up your smartphone and you'll have your own personal artificial intelligence that will be as smart as the smartest human being and possibly a collection of the smartest human beings in the world today. And anything you need to figure out, your phone will be able to tell you. Now you can move forward into the future. Ray Kurzweil says by 2049, that AI will be super intelligent and as intelligent as all the collective brains on Earth today. Now, as that's happening, why are schools teaching us things that are personalized artificial intelligence, which is essentially an extension of our brain? It's now on our smartphone. So schools are preparing us for a world that is no longer going to exist. And then there's robotics and artificial intelligence applied to jobs. Now, that's a whole other thing. Even jobs such as lawyers, doctors, copywriters, algorithms, AI, and robotics are taking away those jobs. Now, when this happens, what should we be learning? Because honestly, you're a mechanical engineer. What's going to happen with an artificial intelligence? So I remember talking to a group of scientists, and they were talking about the impact of AI on the future. And they specifically spoke about mechanical engineering, right? They say, let's say you want to invent a skateboard, right? So you can hire a team of mechanical engineers to optimize and create the world's greatest skateboard. But 10 years from now, you could assign that to an AI. And the AI, if it's programmed right, could create millions of different iterations of a skateboard, put it through algorithmic tests, and boom, 3D print the ideal skateboard. Where is the role of the mechanical engineer in there? Even mechanical engineering gets disrupted. Google just wrote AI that can write its own software. So where does the role of my job, computer engineering, come in? Now, this doesn't mean that all of these skills are going to disappear. They're still going to be necessary. But what is truly going to make us unique, what's truly going to make us high functioning in the world is not this. It's the skills that truly lead to happy lives. It's learning how to be better parents. It's learning wisdom. It's learning mindfulness. It's learning how to deal with those scourges of society, anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. Schools don't teach this. And there was a Harvard study, right, done by Sean Aker. So he looked at employees in companies and he wanted to see what would be the things that would contribute to these employees seeing their career go up. And guess what? It wasn't skills. Rather, it was what Sean Aker called social connectivity score. He found that you could look at all these employees, you could rate them on their social connectivity score, and this means their ability to empathize with others, their kindness, their levels of positivity when they walk into a room, their motivation, their optimism. And if you look at the top 25%, if you're on that top 25% in terms of social connectivity score, you are going to be 40% more likely to get a raise in the next 2 years than everyone else. And it has nothing to do with the school you graduated from. So,
and we know that because
Yeah.
I know guys from MIT and you know guys from Michigan, including even you by your own example, that got out there in the workforce and were probably useless
Right.
to themselves, right? Because we
Yes.
didn't know ourselves very well.
So the answer isn't to wipe out these schools, but it's to get these schools to teach things that can contribute to social connectivity score and contribute to personal wisdom. That's where personal growth comes in. So Mindvalley, I predict this is going to be huge in the future. So right now we're assembling all of the world's greatest teachers onto our platform, from Neil Donald Walsh to Robin Sharma to Wim Hof. Our goal is to create the best technologies, the best events, the best learning curriculums, because I believe this is what the billions of people are going to crave 10 years from now.
Okay.
when you have Jarvis in your pocket.
Right, right. Tell me about the university, because this is interesting,
Right.
because it just happened a month ago. What is it? When did you think of it? And if I had been there in Barcelona this last month, what would I have experienced?
Okay, so here's the problem with school. It is a bullshit idea that you pluck out a teenager from society and stick them in a bubble for 4 years with other teens, and then have them go through classes and to compete to get grades so that they can maybe go to graduate school, maybe go take another job, maybe go become partner in a law firm, and it creates a really dysfunctional world. I mean, the problem in America is that most people go into university, start going for classes and figuring out how to combine and select their academic credits before they can legally buy a beer. Most people in America have to choose a career before you could legally buy a beer. And that's kind of messed up. I became a computer engineer. I got a job at Microsoft. I worked my butt off for 5 years to get that job. 11 weeks into that job at Microsoft, I realized I hated it. And so I quit. I quit cold turkey, and I went and I followed my passion, and I did what really inspired me. And back then it was joining a nonprofit that allowed me to travel and do good work in the world. Now, here's the problem. So the problem with university is you're putting these kids in a bubble, and by the time they come out, the world has changed, and the world is changing at an ever-increasing rate. Peter Diamandis said, between 1900 and 2000, between 2000 and 2015, we will see as much change in the world, or we saw as much change in the world as 1900 to 2000. But here's the crazy bit. Between 2016 and 2022, we will see as much change in the world as the entire 20th century. And then from 2022 to 2025, in 3 years, the world will shift as much as an entire century before. So what's going to happen when you spend 4 years in the bubble with a bunch of other teenagers? So Mindvalley's version of college is dramatically different. The first thing is we take away the 4 years. We take away that bubble. You go to university for 1 month of the year, and then you go back into the real world and actually do things. Start a company, learn new skills, intern at a company. That's the first thing, right? So it's you spend a month in focused learning, then 11 months applying and doing. And because when you, in today's world, the best way to learn is to also apply and do, because jobs are changing so fast. Now, the second thing is it's transgenerational. So we have entire families come together. I'm there taking classes, but my 9-year-old son is taking classes. My friends' teenage sons are taking classes in the teenage track. 20-somethings are taking classes. So it's tracks for people of all ages. And these tracks weave in together. In certain tracks, I'm there with my 9-year-old son. Now think about what this does to a 9-year-old when he's in a room, not with other 9-year-olds, but with adults. And then it gets even better. In this university, so again, one of our models for this was Burning Man. Beautiful thing about Burning Man is they create a canvas and people come and build on that canvas. A lot of the students who come to Mindvalley U then teach. So we had this one 27-year-old who joined Mindvalley U for a month with her boyfriend, and her name is Reagan Hillier. And she has a business at 27 that does millions a year. So she came, she learned, then she decided to go and teach the teenagers. So now you have these 18 and 19-year-olds learning about life, not from a professor, but from a 27-year-old who leads an epic life. She gets to travel, she has a team, she's built up her brand, and it was so inspiring that that weekend, some of those teenagers started their first company on Shopify. Because one of the teens we spoke to, he said, I've always wanted to start a t-shirt company, but I thought I had to have my parents pay for me to go to college, take some business classes, come out, get an investor, take all of these management classes and accounting classes so I know how to run a business, and then start my company. Bullshit. He started it in 3 days, sold his first t-shirt. His entire paradigm shifted. He says, now I know I'm still going to go to university, but I'm going to be an entrepreneur as I go through university. That's what we're trying to do. We're accelerating the process. We're getting rid of the unnecessary dogma, the unnecessary bullshit rules, the unnecessary long-winded parts, going straight to building a school that teaches people what truly matters. How to be a better parent, how to love better, how to be happier, how to improve your self-esteem, how to practice mindfulness so you don't have to suffer from depression or anxiety like so many of the other people in the world, how to start a business fast, how to, we even had classes on how to invest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, stuff that many universities are not picking up. But the greatest thing about this is the connections. Because people come together and we design it in a way where you have community, you have connections, you leave with 6 to 10 new best friends from around the world that are with you. And it's transgenerational. We had 25-year-olds becoming close friends with 50-year-olds. And think about what that does. The older folks learn from youth. The youth have connections in big companies, in entrepreneurial ventures where they can apply to get a job. They have mentors. It is amazing to see how people of different generations can come together.
What took you so long to do this? That's what I want to know, because you've been doing online education
Right.
for a long time. Why did you finally
Well-
say, I got to bring people together?
Well, here's what happened, right? It took me so long because I doubted the idea could work, because everyone I pitched this to said, who on earth is going to be able to leave their jobs and spend 30 days in a city with their kids? But then the world started changing. Do you know that my HR manager was at an HR conference recently, right? And a big thing that they were talking about is that employeeship is going to disappear in 10 years. They said everyone is going to be a free agent. Offices will no longer be necessary. I'm sure you read the news. WordPress, they just disbanded their Silicon Valley office. People are working remotely from around the world, collaborating through Skype, through WhatsApp, through Slack. Employeeship is shifting. Many people are becoming free agents. They stay with a company for 2 to 3 months, work on a project, then go and join another company. Now, because of all of these, all of a sudden, the big doubt that I had when I was setting out this vision, will people come for a month? That disappeared. Right now, not only did we have double the many applications as seats available, but the word of mouth has been so insane that next year we're scaling up for 400% growth. And now we're asking ourselves, how can we put 40,000 students simultaneously into Mind Valley University on this city campus?
On the city campus, because your next one's in Tallinn, in Estonia.
Tallinn, we're aiming for 1,300.
Okay.
But that's still 400% growth.
Wow.
Our first experiment in Barcelona last month was 300 people.
Okay. Walk me through what Monday through Friday would have been like. For me, I'm there with
Right.
my 13-year-old stepdaughter and my missus.
Brilliant question.
Yeah, what are the kinds of things? Am I in class all day?
Brilliant
Is it part
question.
of the day? But what does it feel like?
Brilliant question. So what happens is that when you come, you have a curriculum and you have a co-working space. So this is what my day looked like. I would wake up and my wife and my wife would walk my son to the co-working space. So the adults and the kids are learning in the same neighborhood, a beautiful place called Villa de Gracia in Barcelona. My kid would get enrolled in a class for 90 minutes. An entrepreneur or a teacher would come and teach these kids. So the kids were learning everything from mindfulness to kindness to they had a class where they had to roam the streets and speak to homeless people to develop their sense of empathy. Amazing, right? So my wife would drop the kid off, then she would go up to the 5th floor where the co-working space is and work with her team. My wife has her own company, her own division of Mind Valley. She flew her team down. So her entire team was super excited because they got to work together in a new city, bond and connect in new ways. Now, at 11 a.m., we have a class. So we have often so many famous teachers and celebrities decided to come down and teach. Everyone from the NFL icon, Tony Gonzalez, to Wim Hof, right, the superhuman Guinness record holder whose picture I see on your wall,
Yeah,
to
that's
legends like Lisa Nichols, Marissa Peer, who's Britain's #1 coach. So at 11 a.m. there'd be a class. And then we had formal classes with celebrities, with great teachers that we arranged, but we also opened up slots for the students there to teach. So students would apply. So one guy, Andrew Potoshnik, he's made millions investing in Ethereum and Bitcoin. I didn't even know what Ethereum was. He did a class on Bitcoin and Ethereum that blew everyone's mind, right? So we have classes at 11, a class at 3, and a class at 5. Each class is 90 minutes, and it's optional. So you have a co-working space where you're connecting with people, you're grabbing coffee, you're taking beautiful walks in the city. There are 3 different classes every day, and this goes on for about a month. And in the evening, there are organized parties. You go for a flamenco show, you go for an organized party, you can sign up to go on a trip to see the Sagrada Familia, all with fellow students. And this is where the greatest thing that university gave us, community and friends, this is where that comes in. Right. So when people leave, they've learned something. But the crazy thing is, it's not about the agenda. We bring in the great teachers, but that's never number one. Number one are the friendships. And remarkable friendships are created when you experience moments that fill you with emotion with someone else. When you experience a mind-blowing idea, or when you gaze upon the Sagrada Familia, the most beautiful church in the world, with people next to you. Or when you go out for a night of drinking, of tapas and cava in a beautiful suburb of Barcelona with 5 or 6 other students. And those friendships are what carry people through. So we found that
Because that's what I remember about university. It's those
the
moments.
friendships, yes. But as we become adults, you know, there was a study done that shows that, especially it applies to men and women, after we turn 40, the amount our social connections start going down. We spend more time with our spouses, our kids, and that's great, but it's not enough. Men, especially after 40, start getting lonely. I created this because I was getting lonely. My life was work, gym, meditation, kids, spouse, and I loved all of it. But I had no room to hang out with my friends. I remember 1 month went by and I realized I had turned down 5 friends who asked me to go out for drinks. Not because I didn't want to, because I was so damn tired. After work, I want to come back. I got to spend time with my kids, help them with their homework. And I created this so that all of us have a chance to escape from the day to day. And we still get to work, but we get to experience life in a new world, in a new society, in a new city, with beautiful new friends, and do it with our children and our family, so you're not leaving them aside. And when I did this, I realized, I woke up in Barcelona one day and I was cycling on my rented bicycle to my co-working space. And I realized that this is not just a new form of education, it's a new form of living. It's the closest you can come to reincarnation. At home, I have my beautiful blue Merc that I drive to work. Here, I'm on a frickin' green bicycle that costs 300 euros. But I'm loving every minute of it. It's the closest you can come to reincarnation because you're in a new city, but not as a tourist. You're dropping your kids off to classes, you're attending classes, you have your meetings to get to, you have your co-working space, and you have a community. And it's so enriching and so beautiful, and I can't wait to go back 1 year from now.
Is this the new family vacation? Because
Yes.
funny enough,
Absolutely.
I was in Barcelona a year ago, and we took the family, and it's 2 weeks, and you can't wait to go, and it's this beautiful city. But some of you, part of you says, after 3 days, what do we do?
Exactly. It is the new family vacation. It's the new family vacation, especially for people who are creators, who are entrepreneurs, who love doing stuff that matters. I'm one of those people. When I go to a vacation, after 2 or 3 days, I get bored. I'm like, all right, this is like the 15th church I've seen. What can I do next?
Right.
And then while I'm spending time with my kids and my wife, which is great, after 3 days, sometimes you long for, I long for the company of men, of my peers, you know.
You want to talk about ideas, you want to create things, you want
And that's what happens here. So what was really funny is a lot of people moved to Barcelona thinking, oh, we're gonna see all of these different museums. They never had time for that because they were so busy and so enamored by the beautiful talks. And for me, the greatest thing was every single night going to a new Spanish restaurant, because I freaking love Spanish food, and having meaningful conversations with new friends.
Okay. Wow. This is very interesting to hear and
Right.
for you to report back. 2 things. Biggest surprise, positive. Biggest thing that you didn't see coming that you're like, I'm going to fix this next time.
Right. Well, the first thing is, we thought people cared about a co-working space. So we had 600 applicants. Our co-working space had room for 300. We turned down 300 people. So we had a 50% acceptance rate.
Because
Turned
you're a
out
tech guy. So
Yeah.
tech guys, we love our co-working spaces.
nobody gave a damn about the co-working space because people would come there and they would think, okay, I'm going to work for 4 to 6 hours, but then they would find the classes so interesting, and they would find they got so much out of the conversations because they are there with other brilliant people that they decided to forego work in many cases, or work 1 or 2 hours a day, and instead go for masterminds, go for coffee house chats, go for walks with other people in their industry.
Okay.
And I did that, and I got so much more out of it than about simply being in front of my computer and being on Slack or email. That was the first big surprise.
Okay, so you wanted to give people the option to work.
Right.
So they wouldn't be thinking at 30 days, I can't not
Right.
work. But you found out that people actually use that time to connect with others.
They found the connection far, far, far more valuable.
Okay.
And the second thing that happened is we initially created a pop-up school for kids under 14 so that parents didn't have to worry about these kids. But the pop-up school was so incredible, so brilliant. Educators from around the world, some of the world's leading educators, flew down to see what was going on. We had Phil Moore from the Upland School. It's a school for gifted children in Michigan. He flew down. All of these incredible educators flew down. One flew 35 hours just for 2 days to see this experiment. And because parents were coming to us, kids were coming to us going, oh my God, this is incredible. Teenagers were saying, I learned more in 1 month in the last 2 years of school. And so we decided that we were going to expand this particular thing. The pop-up school was done as an experiment, so parents didn't have to worry about their kids. Right. It was so successful that we now have we have a education program from Houston that's bringing 100 teenagers next year, because their founder came, checked it out, and was mind blown. So next year we are launching Mindvalley Schools, and we're going to create tracks, like more structured tracks for teenagers and for kids under 13.
Okay, Mindvalley Schools is specifically the university targeted for under
Exactly. So it's 30 days. It's 30 days. It's a summer program. So the adults are there learning, but now your teenage kids and your younger kids have tracks for them as well.
Okay. This is fascinating. And also, I was at A-Fest, so I got to learn a little bit more about you and a little bit of the history of Mindvalley, and I'm starting to put some pieces together.
Right.
Because you started doing A-Fest in 2010, and you started bringing these people together for these amazing experiences with each other. And I'm thinking this is when you started to see what happens when you bring people together.
Right.
And later you said, wow, okay, now we have to do it in this university, maybe. But maybe you could walk me through maybe your path with Mindvalley that got me where you want to go. And then I'd love for you to talk to me a little bit about your mission, because you dropped the mission on everybody in the A-Fest. And quite frankly, I was taking notes. I was really inspired with your mission. And I think that's really important to talk about. So talk to me about the start of Mindvalley first.
Well, Mindvalley started, as I said, because I wanted to spread meditation to the world. And but there's a lot more to it. Meditation is one thing, but there's a second value that I hold really dear to my heart, and that's human unity. And the reason I hold that so dear to my heart is because growing up as an Indian kid in Malaysia, where I looked different from everyone else, I went through a lot of racism growing up. When I was in the United States, starting Mindvalley over there, I ended up, it was the post-September 11 world. And if you look at me, I could be Middle Eastern. And I ended up, for whatever reason, being on a Muslim watch list, which existed back then. President Obama ruled it as unconstitutional in 2008. It was ended. Trump wants to bring it back now, but I was added to this watch list. And I'm not judging it. I'm not judging it. I'm just sharing what I experienced. My wife is European, and all of a sudden, living in the United States, I found that every 30 days, I had to report to the government to be fingerprinted, to be photographed, and to have to hand them my credit cards so they could see all my purchases.
That's
and sometimes
crazy.
I had to wait in line 4 hours just for my turn to happen. I couldn't board certain planes. I couldn't use certain airports. Before getting on a flight, I had to go for a 2-hour interrogation. Getting off a flight, I had to go for another 2-hour interrogation. So I felt that I don't want that in the world in the future. My wife is white. She's Estonian. So, Estonians are like Finnish, very blonde, very blue-eyed. I'm Indian. So if you look at my children are somewhere in between. They look Syrian or Lebanese or Israeli. They look Middle Eastern, right? I don't want my daughter or my son ending up on such a list because of how they look. They look different. They are these beautiful mixed kids. And so I thought that as I build up Mindvalley, while education is important, there's an important aspect to human growth that is often not looked at. And it's called world-centrism. Ken Wilber says you can look at human development on an axis that looks like this. For the longest time, we thought that human development involved taking people into different states of consciousness. So there's a state of consciousness path. And you can have these moments of awakening through meditation, through psychedelics, through neurotraining. You can have these moments of awakening. I guess one of the highest levels would be the samadhi experience, where you feel a feeling of oneness with all life. But 20 years ago, they discovered that wasn't it, that there's a second level of human awakening. And it's called, and if this is waking up, this is called growing up, to use Ken Wilber's terms. It's called growing up, and growing up means this. It means understanding that your compassion, your connectedness with other human beings can expand beyond just your religion or your culture or your nation state. So in the most simplistic sense, people can fall in around 4 different stages of growing up. There's about the 1% of the world that would be at the egocentric stage, which means that their level of kindness and compassion doesn't go beyond their body. These people can be psychopaths, they can be murderers, they can be dangerous. Fortunately, it's a tiny percentage. 70% of the world is at what you would call the ethnocentric stage. These are people who believe that their country is the greatest country in the world and others have it wrong. Or their religion has all the answers and others have it wrong. 70% of the world. Now, there's this awakening happening where 30% of the world has moved to what is called the world-centric stage. And the world-centric stage is where we need to move more of humanity. The world-centric stage means you understand that, look, your religion is beautiful to you, but it is not the only way. It is merely one way. Your nation is great, but you can enjoy and learn so many things about other cultures, and your country doesn't have all the answers. And so when people move from ethnocentric to world-centric, we create a much better world. We are more tolerant of things such as gay rights, mixed marriages. We're less likely to fight each other. We're less likely to create things such as a watch list. We are, as Jeremy Corbyn said yesterday at Glastonbury, he said, we in Britain need to build bridges. We are not going to build walls. That's a world-centric attitude. Now, there is a level above that called cosmocentrism. That's really a far more advanced stage. That's if an alien landed on this planet and he stepped out of his spaceship and he was green and had tentacles emerging from his mouth and slime dripping over his body.
We'd give him a hug.
We'd give him a hug because we can extend our levels of compassion to all sentient beings. So personal growth is about two things. It's about getting people into these enlightened experiences, but also getting people to expand their circles of compassion to wider and wider circles until you can encompass all of planet Earth. Now, here's what's interesting. The guy who first put this idea out was Charles Darwin in 1872. He wrote a book called The Descent of Man and Sexual and Natural Selection in Sex. I can't remember the title, complicated title, but it was an 1872 book. And Darwin spoke about this idea called diffusion of sympathy. Sympathy back in 1872 is simply what we would call compassion today. And he said, as man understands that they can unify in tribes and have sympathy for other tribes because it is advantageous to them, they soon realize that they can extend their sympathy to all members of a nation. And as soon as this point is reached, they realize they can extend their sympathy to groups of nations. And as soon as this is reached, these levels of sympathy will extend further and further and further. And occasionally we'll hit hiccups. It's harder to extend your sympathy to people who look different from you, say Syrian refugees, right? But this too will happen until man's levels of sympathy will extend to all sentient life. And it was astonishing that Darwin wrote the word sentient life. Amazing. He used those exact terms. And so I think it is one of the singular most powerful paragraphs ever written in any book. And it's just about 400 words. It's it's a tiny section of that book, but it's powerful stuff. Darwin didn't just predict where we're coming from, he predicted where we're going. Now, back to Mindvalley's mission. Personal growth is not just about expanding your awareness of yourself. It's about getting you to become a change maker, to expand your levels of compassion beyond yourself, to your community, and later to the wider world and all human beings. It's about training people to be as concerned about people starving in Venezuela as people starving in their own country. It's about training people to look beyond borders and religions and skin color. That's really one of the overriding value systems at Mindvalley. It's why in our office we have 40 different nationalities working together. When you came to AFES, you would have noticed a huge number of different countries represented. We want to help expand people, both in terms of waking up, but also in terms of growing up, in terms of their diffusion of sympathy, to use Darwin's language.
And those are two different axes. So just because I can meditate and become more aware of myself,
right,
doesn't mean that I'm growing as
doesn't
well.
mean you're growing.
Right.
No.
So you can have someone that's very, very in touch with themselves,
right,
who still has that me-centric view.
Right.
Okay.
And
meditating psychopath.
And yes, and we call this the asshole guru syndrome. You've read about these gurus, right, who have these big followings, but they are assholes and they are being accused of sexual predatory behavior and manipulating people. They've achieved high levels of waking up. Now, I met one of these asshole gurus. He and his team, they were being investigated by scientists because he was able to do some crazy stuff. Science was showing that he could hold seeds in his hand and accelerate their growth. He was doing a tour of the United States, and they approached me to build a website for them, to build a brand and marketing. and I was super excited. But I was in a meeting with this guy, and one of my staff walked in. And he'd asked for a private meeting with me, and I gave it to him. But one of my staff walked in, a dear, dear, dear member of my team, someone I absolutely adore. And he turned to that guy and he goes, "Who the fuck are you?" And the guy goes, "I'm part of Vision Team." And he said, "Get the fuck out! Get out! You cannot just walk in. This is my meeting." And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That guy works with me. He's like, "I don't care. I asked for a meeting with you." The next day, I canceled that deal. I lost $50,000, but I didn't want that level of energy in my life. That's the asshole guru syndrome. High levels of mental ability, of spiritual ability. You can see you can see auras, you can heal with your hands. Scientists can even study this phenomenon in you, but you haven't grown up. You're at the egocentric, ethnocentric level. You're too much into yourself. You cannot extend your levels of compassion beyond yourself. So you got to grow in both axes. Mind Valley sometimes gets accused of being political because in our education, we sometimes will release a video that talks about how to look at a political leader and understand if they are holding humanity back or pushing humanity forward. And so we may, especially when because of what's going on right now with Trump, right?
Yeah. You made some early calls when he was running for president. And you said, "Look, this is how we feel about it."
I
right?
made some early calls, yes. Yeah. And firstly, when you get to higher levels, when you get to the cosmocentric level, you never judge anyone. If Trump was here, I'd want to give him a hug. I definitely want to take him out for dinner. His book was an incredible book. I learned so much from his writing. He's a good man, but I disagree with his approach because his approach is ethnocentric. So again, notice I said he's a good man, but he's certainly not qualified, in my opinion, to be a leader because the world doesn't need ethnocentric leaders. Ethnocentric leaders are very prone to come up with ideas such as, let's build a border wall to keep out the Mexicans, or let's create this Muslim watch list. That's not the forward progression of the human race. I mean, Darwin predicted this 150 years ago. So what we want to do is teach our audience to look at leaders who are inclusive. You can be right, you can be left, that doesn't matter. But don't vilify other human beings because that's tapping into this reptilian part of our brain, which causes the fear of the other. And it's an easy way to get votes, but it isn't the natural forward progression of the human race.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, and I'll see you on the inside.
Talk to me about the phrase unfuckwithable.
When you are confident and secure in your own self that nothing someone else says or does can shake you. Unfuckwithable.